Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this ongoing video series on the nodes. And we are looking at the nodes in the houses. And today we'll be looking at Rahu in the sixth house. But then before we go into the meat of the video, kindly subscribe to the channel, like the content if you find it useful, and also share it with your friends and family if you think they would be benefiting from this knowledge. Anyways, Rahu in the sixth house will put Ketu in the 12th house. And this pattern of the axis goes by the name of Mahapadma. Okay. And Mahapadma is thought of as a mercenary who is available to guard something valuable or to ensure security of some kind, whether physical, environmental, financial, or legal. As such, Mahapadma is an expert at controlling and manipulating unbalanced situations that could tip either way. So there is often a focus on accidents, conflict management, health, illness, injuries, opposition, and physical challenges of every kind. And such a native can be a positive influence in situations where people's security is threatened. For example, like a medical specialist or a police or a military officer or an environmental activist or even a legal expert. But then such a native could just as easily exploit others through the same channels, for example, blackmail and extortion under threat of violence, sale of drugs to those who are ill or addicted, unfair employment practices, threat of litigation, and so on. And these people can be successful, but that success often comes for a price, like struggling against constant competition or residing far from home with, with consequent family stress. Okay. But then how does Rahu behave in the sixth house? Let's take a look at that. Now, the sixth house is an Upachaya house. That is the first understanding. And in general, Rahu in an Upachaya house is always promising. Okay. But then its placement in the sixth house, which is a Trika sthana or a Trika house, it will have mixed effects on the native. Okay. And as we know, Rahu represents desire and obsession. And with Rahu in the sixth, Ketu, as I said in the beginning, it will go to the 12th house. So there would be a bias for adversarial activities regarding the environment, labor practices, medicine, social security. And this biasness can sometimes cost your sleep, sexual boundaries, or even spiritual practice. Now, sixth house is the house of the rogue. Okay. The troublemaker who makes life difficult for others. It is the battlefield of competition, litigation and warfare. And it is the breeding ground for death, divorce, and illness. On the opposite to the sixth house lies the 12th house, which is the house of Bhoga. Bhoga. The 12th house is a ocean of leisure and pleasure. So if the sixth house is the boxing ring of life, the 12th is the private space where you nurse your wounds. And because the lunar nodes are associated with our primordial nature, they reflect instincts and visceral desires that operate unconsciously, stimulated by subliminal influences. So some of our most primitive influences, for example, the survival instinct, are linked to the nodal axis through these houses. The sixth house rules the intestines as well. And because Rahu represents the Vata element, it can cause discontinuities, irregularities, and spasms. So as a result of this, various, intestinal disorders can manifest. For example, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, etc. Now, the nodes also rule krumi or parasites. So Rahu in the sixth can indicate bowel elements. And, for example, it can so happen that you as a tourist have gone to Africa or maybe India and then come home with intestinal worms. And if left undetected, these worms can proliferate to rob you of, of nutrients and provoke toxicity in the blood. The sixth house also rules small animals and pets, and that is another source of contamination for humans. And dogs can acquire worms from improperly prepared food, passing them on to their owners via licking. Similarly, cats are a source of toxic plasmosis, which is a parasite excreted through their faces. Similarly, pregnant mothers must handle kitty litter with extreme care because the easily transmitted parasite can infect the brain of an unborn child. And less common, but but no less consequential, is the bite of a deer tick infected by Lyme's disease. So this can cause flu-like symptoms, joint pain, and a pervasive lethargy that can rob victims of energy for months, if not years. The sixth house also rules routines, of which our breath and diet are the most basic. So it is also associated with prana, which provides oxygen to replenish the blood. And Rahu in the sixth, it threatens erratic breathing, incomplete respiration, or susceptibility to airborne pollutants in the environment. The sixth house also rules routines, diet and exercise, work and service. So Rahu's presence in the sixth house will provoke disruptions and irregularities. And compulsive Rahu can make the native obsessed with daily routines to such a degree that people might wonder if such a native suffers from OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder. And under compulsion, such a native may also fall into a pattern of bad habits. And the influence of benefics versus malefics on Rahu is the ultimate determining factor. For example, if Rahu is influenced by Mars, then it can inflict violence on the body, as seen among those who must go to the gym every day or maybe run 10 kilometers every day. Okay. Now, if this Rahu becomes obsessive in the sixth, it can make one very fearful. For example, a germaphobe who won't shake hands with anyone, or a hypochondriac who interprets every symptom as a potential threat for illness. Okay. And such a native may be argumentative, sowing conflict even in situations that don't entail opposing forces. And because Rahu is, it represents covert operations from the shadows, it can be difficult to pin down such a native and, admit to his or her unconscious provocations. Now, at a higher level, Rahu here can indicate a capacity for tapasya, a self-imposed torture of the body that acknowledges the primacy of the spirit over the body, reminding that the latter is just a servant of the former. All right, even Sri Rama had Rahu in the sixth house, so it's not always bad. The sixth house also rules maternal aunts and uncles, and with Rahu, here it indicates a spectrum of irregularities among such relatives, from mere eccentricity to alcoholism or drug abuse, physical or mental illness, marital instability or same-sex orientation. And this malefic Rahu operates in relative secrecy, so it can represent hereditary diseases that threaten all family relatives. And since Rahu is mysterious, these diseases may be difficult to diagnose or cure. The sixth house also rules servants and pets. So such a native may employ a foreign housekeeper or keep exotic birds, reptiles or other imported pets. Now, Rahu favors subterfuge, okay? And the native may marry and divorce for expedient reasons. For example, exploiting property laws to gain a favorable divorce settlement or to gain residency status. And such a native may work as a surrogate spouse just for sex or to conceive a child, and after the job is done, the relationship is terminated. Such a native may also face physical challenges or may be prone to illness or injury, and consequently, these people may choose a career where they can exert a positive influence in situations where people's security is threatened. For example, as I said, a medical specialist, a police or a military officer, an environmental activist, a legal expert, and so on. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, the native could easily exploit others through the same channels. Okay. And such a native's work ethic may be so compulsive that he or she can damage his or her health or even marriage. And because Rahu has an insatiable appetite, The native's larger than life ambitions may get him or her into situations too big to handle. So Rahu is also a risk taker. So such a person will usually further his or her career via unconventional practices or advanced technology in areas such as environmental protection, legal procedures, medical treatments, military strategy, police tactics, and even artificial intelligence. Okay. And Rahu in the sixth house favors employment in the medical field, especially those who administer drugs or use advanced technology, like allergy specialists or anesthesiologists or drug overdose emergency responders, epidemiologists, oncologists, pharmacists, radiologists, and even toxic substance specialists. Now, in alternative medicine, Rahu in the sixth can give a career in Ayurveda. It can make one a faith healer, herbalist, a homeopath, a naturopath, practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, purveyor of essential oils, and so on. And this could also cover a veterinarian who specializes in exotic pets. Rahu in the sixth also favors professional handling of toxic substances in the environment, workplace safety inspection, hazardous material handling, environmental compliance, toxic waste transport, disposal, medical waste disposal, centers of disease control, and disposal or destruction of expired or illegal drugs. Rahu in the sixth will also promote the concept of shadowy service. Proxies and surrogates, they play a role in diverse areas like police, military, legal procedures, and all ministries of service. And the native may engage in social work with clientele among the defranchised, for example, drug users, criminals, prostitutes, the homeless, the unemployed, and people suffering from diseases like AIDS and STDs. Okay. So Rahu is very opportunistic and predatory as well. So that's the ultimate side of Rahu. So such a native may be a mercenary, selling his or her services to the highest bidder. And apart from soldiers of fortune, this includes arms dealers, brokers in the black market for body parts, drug dealers, prostitutes, civil servants who are open to bribery, and lobbyists for the defense, medical, or pharmaceutical industries. And Rahu is usually smoky. So the smoky planet in the sixth rules work environments polluted with chemicals and smoke, for example, coal mines, foundries, kitchens, paint factories, after hour bars with no smoking restrictions, opium dens, nude clubs, and so on. So such a native can be an agent provocateur, stirring up conflicts to exploit advantage. Lawyers and defense contractors are examples of such profiteers. No matter who wins or loses, they will always make money. And such a native may be a jealous prosecutor of crimes, cruelty to animals, environmental pollution, medical malpractices, labor strikes, human trafficking, prejudicial employment practices, unsafe working conditions, crimes against persons, class action suits involving pharmaceuticals, and war crimes. And as a defense attorney, they may represent clients involving labor violations, prostitution, drug abuse, environmental violations, unjust termination, and so on. And because Rahu has this serpentine nature, these people will be adept at finding loopholes through which even a guilty client might escape. Rahu in the sixth may also reveal a fascination with the underclass, for example, prostitutes or drug users and assorted lowlifes. And more positively, the native may be passionate about defending the oppressed, enfranchised and victims of social injustice. So this disruptive Rahu in the sixth house of open enmity invites acquisitions, adversaries, clashes of opinion, divorce, and litigation. And the native may seek employment in fields offering a regular dose of conflict, no matter the context, whether healthcare or labor regulations or environmental protection, and so on. So such a person will thrive in fields that test his or her mettle under stress, winning prestige via courage, under fire, and dogged resistance. So wars on crime, disease, drug addiction, labor inequity, child labor, equal pay for women, slavery, prostitution, and even pollution are appropriate fields for such natives to thrive and rise. The sixth house also rules debts and loans, and the native profits by taking advantage of the financially marginalized. Such a native may operate a pawn shop, offer check cashing services, provide rolling credit extensions, become involved in bankruptcy sales and property foreclosures, or even engage in illegal activities like loan sharking. Okay, so it's a very dicey placement to have, but then this is all about Rahu in the sixth. Do let me know if it resonates with you, if you or anyone you know has Rahu in the 6th house, and please do leave behind your comments in the feedback section. As always, if you want a consultation regarding your chart, you're always welcome to reach out at the number provided in the description box. That's it from me in these videos. Please share the content with your friends and family if you find this knowledge can benefit others as well. I'll see you soon in yet another video. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.